Let's talk about the pentatonic scale. Whether you've taken in-person lessons or you're teaching yourself with YouTube videos, you're probably familiar a little bit with the pentatonic scale. There's no doubt that this scale is the foundation to pretty much every guitarist's ability to be able to solo and visualize the fretboard. The camera roll on my phone and the unlisted section of my YouTube is full of videos of me talking about the pentatonic scale for my in-person and virtual students. Because this subject matter is really important for literally anyone trying to play guitar, I decided to do an all-encompassing, no stone left unturned, deep dive on the pentatonic scale. I'm gonna break this up into a series of videos so it's a little easier to digest. For some of you that may have worked through my Mateus lessons, this might seem a little elementary, but it's important nonetheless. If your understanding is spotty, I would definitely recommend watching the entirety of this video and all the other videos. But if you know what you're looking for, feel free to skip around via the timecode in the description. For today, we're gonna start with the pentatonic shapes and the fingerings that I like to use for them. All of the materials for this lesson are available on my website for free, and that link is in the description. Definitely check that out. So what is the pentatonic scale? The pentatonic scale is a scale consisting of 5 notes. So if you think about the word pentatonic, penta, like a pentagon, 5, and tonic, like tones, so it's a 5-tone scale. If we use each of the 5 notes as a different starting point on the guitar, we have 5 different shapes. So if you memorize the 5 shapes, you can make your way around the pentatonic scale in both major and minor keys. This lesson is entirely about the physical dexterity when it comes to playing the pentatonic scale, and we're gonna be playing all of these shapes in the key of A minor or C major. Once you know how to play all 5 shapes, be sure to check out this video up here that talks about how to apply the shapes to different keys. So that video is a little more theoretical, whereas this video is entirely physical. Having an understanding of the physical and theoretical aspects are both equally important. With that, go ahead and grab your guitar and we'll run through the 5 pentatonic shapes together. If you know any pentatonic shape, this is probably the one. I consider this to be the first shape, or the first position. We're going to be playing 2 notes per string on this shape and every other shape for that matter. And this one lays out really nicely on the guitar, which is why I think it's the one that everyone learns first. So if you think about all of your fingers being designated to a fret, so for example, your index finger is always going to play the 5th fret, your middle finger is always going to play the 6th fret, your ring finger is always going to play the 7th fret, and your pinky the 8th. So we're designating all 4 fingers to a fret, and this one lays out nicely because there aren't any weird stretches or shifts, and your index finger is always going to be the first note on every string. So your index finger acts as an anchor, and the shape is as follows: index, pinky, index, ring, index, ring, index, ring, index, pinky, index, pinky. This probably goes without saying, but always remember the low E string is the same as the high E string. So anything you play on the low E string, you're going to play it the exact same way on the high E string. And one last note before we move on to the next shape. Try to avoid rocking your hand back and forth. You want to think about stretching your fingers so your pinky never really leaves the general area of the 8th fret. Your index finger never really leaves the general area of the 5th fret, so on and so forth with the other fingers. So a good way to practice this would be to leave your index finger on after you place the 2nd finger down, whether it be the pinky or the ring. So that kind of looks like that, rather than... So I see a lot of students rock their hands back and forth to try to make the stretch. We want to try to make the stretch without really having to leave the general area that all of our fingers should be in. This one's a little more cumbersome than the first one, and it might take a little longer to get used to, but it's still not too bad. We have all of our fingers being designated to particular frets. So our index finger is on the 7, our middle finger is on the 8, ring on the 9, and pinky on the 10. And we're gonna start with the middle finger on the 8th fret. So that's why this one's a little weird. The other one was all index finger. Depending on the string, we're gonna be changing what finger we start on. So if I start from the low E string, the fingering is as follows. Middle, pinky, index, pinky, index, pinky, index, ring, middle, pinky, middle, pinky. And remember, the high E string is the same as the low E string. Like the first shape, avoid rocking your hand back and forth. Try to keep your fingers in the positions of the frets that you're assigning them to. So this third position is the first position that introduces a shift. So when I'm doing quicker linear runs, I like to use my index and ring exclusively. So that would look like this: index on the 10, ring on the 12, and you're gonna repeat that pattern for the next 3 strings. Once you get to the G string, you're gonna keep your ring finger in line, but shift your index finger down to the 9th fret. And then you're gonna take that same stretch and shift it up 1 fret for the B string. And then you're back to the regular 10, 12. Depending on what I'm playing, I'll use index and pinky. But like I said, when I'm doing quicker linear runs, I like to stick to index and ring because it kind of takes a lot of the guesswork when it comes to fingering out of the equation. My fingers are on autopilot, and then it's just a matter of knowing where the shifts are. So again, we're gonna do 2 notes per string, and we're gonna assign each finger to a fret. So index on 12, middle on 13, ring on 14, and pinky on 15. So I like to think about the A through G string as being the same as the E through the D string on the first position. So index pinky, index ring, starting on the A string in the 4th position is the same thing as index pinky, index ring, starting on the E string in the 1st position. So what happens on the high E string in the 1st position is we have index and pinky. And if I'm going down to the B string, it's also index and pinky. So that same thing applies to the A string and the E string on the 4th position. So if we take the E string and we know we have 1, 4, then we also know we have 1, 4 on the high E string. And the only wonky string is the B string, and that's when we have to shift up to middle and pinky. So the whole shape again. So a quick note on the final position, I can also play this up here. But I decided to move it down the octave just to kind of demonstrate that everything that happens above the 12th fret is the same as what happens above the open string. So I like to play this one entirely with my index and ring, kind of like the 3rd position. So I'm gonna start on 3, move up to 5, and I kind of think of it like I have 3 pairs of strings. The first pair is the 3rd and 5th fret on the E and A string. The second pair is the 2nd and 5th fret on the D and G string. And then the third pair is the 3rd and 5th fret on the B and E string. And depending on what I'm playing, kind of similar to the 3rd fret, I might use index and pinky. It's important to be able to do both, so that way, you know, if a lick comes up where you need to use your pinky, you want to be able to do that as well. But if I'm going to move through this in a pretty quick linear fashion, I'll stick to 1-3. So we got through all 5 shapes. Now how do we practice them? So I'm going to kind of demonstrate a couple different ways I would practice on the first position. So when we go through and we initially learn them, I'd say it's probably best to focus on your left hand. So do all downstrokes and just kind of slowly make your way through the shape. Once you have that down, try to utilize hammer-ons and pull-offs. So only pick once per string and have the second note be, like I said, a hammer-on or a pull-off. Another way to practice would be to alternate pick, so down, up, down, up. You'll probably be able to get that a lot quicker than doing all downstrokes. That's super uncomfortable and it looks weird. Another way to practice would be to grab the note under the note you're playing before moving on to the next note in that string. So that would look like this. And one other quick thing you could do is 3 at a time and then go back. So 1, 2, 3, go back, 1, 2, 3, go back, 1, 2, 3. So sky's the limit. There's a bunch of things you can do in order to practice these, a bunch of different routines you can do. So already the pentatonic scale is sounding a little more musical when you don't play it linearly. Once you have the 5 shapes down, be sure to check out this video that goes over the connecting shapes. So we've kind of learned the pentatonic scale in chunks. Now we want to be able to get back and forth and in and out of all of those different chunks. So there's 2 connecting shapes that I like to use that'll tie all of those pentatonic boxes together. And the connecting shapes utilize slides, which is a little more vocal technique, and I think that is kind of where the fun comes into pentatonic scales. If you found this video to be helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in more videos pertaining to guitar-related theory, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for sticking around.